Coming up on this week's episode of The Clinch, Wesley Hawkey reveals his 5-year itch for revenge and comes clean on his upbringing as a brother of destruction. One of the continent's most successful coaches shares his training methods and insights into the minds of champions like Leon Meinhardt and Dricus du Plessis. The head coach of CRT, Morne Visser, joins us live in studio. And in a week of massive announcements for the EFC, including a whopping new broadcast deal, EFC President Cairo Howarth is playing for keeps. He joins me in a moment. So welcome to The Clinch. I think we can all agree that it takes a very special person to create and manage an MMA gym. A few years ago, when I asked my next guest what advice he would give to people wanting to start their own training camp, his answer was don't. And it's probably a measure of the pragmatic but tongue-in-cheek nature I've come to expect from Afrikaners, but it's an approach that reflects in the shining gold of the championship belts in the CIT cupboards up in Hatfield, Pretoria. My guest is CIT's owner and head coach, Morne Visser. Morne, thanks for coming in. Is that right, do you think? What is your reason for the phenomenal success of CIT over the years?
I think fun factor and family. The team is like a family.
But success can bring other pressures, and sometimes that kind of pressure can trample that. How do you keep the team vital? Is it that sense of community? But that success does bring very different other pressures from sponsors and from broadcasters alike.
My guys like fighting, and winning is the bonus. My gym is the only gym in the country that will take short notice fights because my guys are always ready and they enjoy fighting. It's not an ego trip. People get this wrong. They think it's an ego trip. It's not an ego trip. You'll never see any of my guys being on an ego trip. It's fighting. We enjoy fighting, we love it, and winning is the bonus. Look, obviously I try to train my guys to be good in all aspects. We try to fight our fight, never the other guy's fight. And this fight we're going to try to keep it standing.
Do you still have difficulty telling Dricus to pace himself for that first round? Does he still come out of the gates like a raging horse? You know?
He does, and it's sometimes it concerns me. Because the level is getting better and better and better. From 17 onwards, we've got to try to fight more clever, take less damage, and for the guys to have longer careers. And Dricus does it. I mean, he gets out there first round, he just wants to go.
Well, let's talk about Leon Meinhardt for a second then. Probably the most, if not one of the most exciting fighters on the EFC roster. But now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. What do you need to do as Morne Visser to get the iron line back to winning ways?
The problem with Leon is, and everybody says, I get a lot of guys coming to me and tell me, isn't Leon just over it? Because he's had 3 losses. No. I said, whoa, no. What are you talking about? You've got to realize that the problems with Leon is the problems that I've had with him since we did K1 for the last couple of years. Same problem. When he gets hit, he wants to challenge you. He drops his hands and he gets into a brawl. And it's an easy fix. It's an easy fix. I've been working on this for a long time. He had to lose. It's a must. He had to. He had to lose to realize that he needs to fight a lot more composed.
I think you can do it, and I'll tell you why. I remember Michiel, when he lost his title, he went on a 3-fight losing streak, and you took him back to possible title contention, so I know you can do it. But when I talk with your guys, a lot of time we get the idea that you do spar and roll pretty darn hard up there. Are you ever concerned that there's a high level of attrition with your fighters?
No. I think the proof is in the pudding. We've had, from the K1 days, now with the MMA days, we've had a lot of success. I know we always get compared with FFM, but I think the strike rate, us 70, them 30, winning, beating them. And between CIT and FFM, we are the biggest gyms and the best gyms in the country.
Let's talk about Michiel very quickly. He's got an investigation coming up with Sayers and Wada regarding his positive test for a banned substance. What do you expect that investigation to find, Morne?
The thing is, Michiel doesn't even use supplements. I promise you, his supplement will be, if you've had to test him, Gasolite and Jack Daniels. And that's what he said to me. It must have been something. We're going to obviously take this as far as we can to try to find out what happened or what's wrong. But I believe it's something, Michiel thinks it's something that he ate. But we're getting behind it. And we're not going to leave it.
Yeah. No, he's got a knee injury, he's got a new light, he's got a medical practice, and he's one of the most outstanding guys I've met in the EFC. I was absolutely blown away. He's the last guy I would think to have been positive, you know.
The way EFC handled this whole thing, blowing it up, and quite a few guys got tested positive before, and they got given the chance to prove themselves innocent. I know of a few guys. We saw it on all the websites, and I just started to get phone calls. I didn't speak to Graham about this. He needs to talk to him about stuff like this. They didn't. Obviously, they've got their own plans and the reasons why they do it, but it is what it is. I mean, we're going to fight it, and Michiel will be back in the cage as soon as his knee's ready. So I'm not even concerned about this testing.
Yeah, I think they had to release the news because he's had a title fight coming up against Yannick Bahati, and they've had to cancel that fight, and they had to give the reasons for it. So I kind of, I can understand the reasons why they had to release the news. Let's move on to more positive things. I want to talk about some of the history of CIT, because it is a great history. You started out as a kickboxing gym. Why and how did you make that transition to MMA?
Look, we did K1 for many, many years. Yeah. And out of the 12 weight divisions, I had in the gym 11 South African titles, 7 African titles, and 4 world titles. So it was a bit of a problem. Nobody wanted to fight my fights, and I had all the best guys in the gym. So, Leon trained at one stage, he trained for 2 years without a fight. So I started to put up K1 events, and that lasted for a while. And then one of the events, I had a K1 event coming up, and I was sitting next to a ring, and I said one night, I was looking at the ring, and I said, no, we're going to have MMA fights in here. Everybody knows Attila Bana, and I had to pull Attila in, and everybody said to me, well, you're never going to be able to work with that guy. He's a tough guy to work with. And we broke the ice quickly. We again, family, he's a friend, he's our friend.
Let's talk about some of the guys then. Apart from we all talk about the Holy Trinity at CIT, Dricus, Leon, and Michiel. But you've got some new guys coming up on the roster, notably Neil Du Plessis, Lyle Karam, Marino Kutendana, and Chart Henning. All guys with very bright futures. Are you expecting belts from them? Are they the future of CIT?
Well, we've got a pretty simple system. And I think it's something that all the other gyms should actually do to make sure that when the guys come from the amateur side into the pro side, that they are high-level fighters. So what we do is, I give my pro class, and after my pro class, Dricus gives an amateur class. And they share a Dricus and Marino. And you've got to become a amateur title holder in your weight division, in your natural weight division, not weight cut division, in your natural weight division, and you've got to defend the title once before Dricus will come to him and ask me, listen, can this guy come over?
In terms of you then, Morne, you're a very successful businessman. You're an incredibly busy guy. I'm actually very lucky to have you on the show. A lot of people said you wouldn't be able to make it. You're such a successful businessman. How do you maintain that work-life balance and yet be the leader of a phenomenally successful MMA gym?
I must be honest with you, 3 years ago, I said I was done. 2 years ago, I said I was done. In the beginning of last year, I said I'm done. I can't do this anymore. It takes up my life. I've got no life. We train from Mondays to Fridays. I've got obligations to these guys all the time. If I'm not there, I know the gym will fall apart. So, I actually walked away from the gym last year for about a month. And
was it hard?
It was very hard, I promise you. But I must be honest with you, it's also not that hard to sit 7 o'clock on a Friday evening in the swimming pool with a beer in your hand. I've got a saying, we don't look into problems, we look into solutions only.
Is that the future of CIT, people?
People, absolutely. The enjoyment factor.
Morne, Visser, thanks very much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Good luck,
Thank you very much. Thanks, Simon. Thank you.
Well, it's been an interesting week in South African MMA with the announcement of a multi-year broadcast deal between EFC and the state broadcaster, the SABC. Apart from moving the live event to Saturday nights and committing to 2-hour slots weekly, the EFC is branching out to the provinces with events not only in Johannesburg, Cape Town and Rustenburg, but the first time Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape and a long overdue return to the Indian Ocean with Durban in June. The more recent fans of the sport in this country might not be aware of the role Durban played in the early days of MMA in South Africa. So with that in mind, the Clinch is going to run a feature series of athletes and camps far away from the City of Gold. In the first instalment, my colleague Myron Naiker headed to the south coast to Amanzimtoti to visit the most popular fighter in KZN, the young assassin, Wesley Hawkey.
Welcome to the Clinch for ENCA.com. My name is Maidat Naika, and we're here at Team MMA Fighter in Amanzimtoti, Morne Swanepoel's gym, and I'm joined by a seasoned pro, a man who's been on the block for many years and obviously started his career here in Durban. Wesley Hawkey, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. It's been a long time. You've been in the fight scene for a long time. Chat to us about the early memories and how exactly did you get into MMA?
If we have to go back to the earlier memories, it would have been before MMA even started, through the boxing career coming up and that. Early MMA in Durban, I can still remember being Suncoast Casino in the tent out there, even at RCC, where the crowds would come in their numbers to support the fights. But my whole jump from the boxing career to the MMA career came from, was motivated by my brother dominating the scene through his stand-up in the early days.
Let's chat about those early days. Donovan and yourself, lots of fights as youngsters?
Not so much myself and Donovan, but myself and the older brother Justin, but very competitive as a family. With Donovan's strength and all like natural skill, and that it was always hard to try keep up, and when it came to competitions it was either maintain or go one step ahead, and I managed to beat him there with the boxing, where he was rated like number 3 in South Africa for like 5 or 6 years. I managed to clinch that and take the gold medals.
Growing up with the brother who was already involved and just before that, what did your parents think, and what did they say, and how did they feel about, you know, being involved in what many people believe is a dangerous sport?
Yeah, well, back in the day, it wasn't really known so much as MMA. It was just like no rule fighting, and people were like, oh, but where's the rules? Lucky, because we come from a young age, and I keep going back to it with boxing, we were started at 6 years old, maintained through our whole life. So when it came to it being dangerous, and that my mother and father knew that we could like defend ourselves standing up, the problems started to come in when the sport started to evolve, and you would get like ground specialists that would come in, and then you end up getting caught in a submission where you're not too fond of, and you don't want to really tap, but so you like keep it a bit longer and you end up injuring yourself. So that was the only issue. But when it came to stand up and that, we were legit to just throw bombs and take it as it came.
You're speaking about the sport evolving, and it has over the years, and we know how big the international game is. But let's talk about the scene down here. And at one stage, Durban was the dominating factor nationally. What has happened since then?
You know what? I think Durban as a whole has some of the strongest fighters in the EFC organization. But the problem is their pride is in the way, and they're too scared to come together, like even on a Saturday or Sunday, and just roll together, because they're scared, this one might see something that he might use against me. It doesn't, they're narrow-minded, the Durban knows.
So it has the potential once again to grow?
Yes, I think Durban's got spectacular fighters. It's just they're not going in the right direction, I feel. The tournaments that are held in Durban are pathetic. Wesley,
you grew up in the Bluff. Chat to us about growing up in an area south of Durban.
In the ghetto.
Did that kind of create a natural attribute to want to defend yourself?
You know what, growing up on the Bluff, people say, it's a rough place. It's not a rough place, it's just a place that when there's a problem, we're outspoken, so we'll sort the issue out. And it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to fight in that, but if push comes to shove, that's usually the case that happens.
Growing up, having watched Donovan, and you've spoken a lot about how much you've learned from his technical skill, having watched his career closely, is there a feeling that perhaps he might have retired too early?
I do perhaps feel that he did, but you know what, being in this game for so long, you actually get so tired, I mean, of the constant training, you need to push yourself for the next event and that. And when you get to the top, with EFC, one loss can push you down like 3-4 positions. You now need to go from the bottom and push yourself up again. I do feel, in a sense, that I would have kept it a bit longer, maybe he comes back. I mean, he is in his prime. He's 33 years old. Your prime is between, I'd say, 28 and 35. And I mean, in the EFC, if you look at it now, you've got light heavyweights and heavyweight fighters, which, I mean, if I could really pick up the weight to go to heavyweight or light heavyweight, I think I would do that. The only problem would be is I'd be too short, but those are useless. And I would think, like, if Donovan just had that heart just to come back and make one more attempt at fighting for EFC, he would smash those.
That's interesting to hear. Let's talk a little bit about yourself, Wesley, and your career and how it spanned the amateur days here in Durban and moving up into EFC. Is there a loss in your mind that you regret? Or is there a victory in your mind that just stands out above everything else?
I think the loss that I regret would be 2012. Demar Penna choking me right at the end of the fourth. I was winning the fight outright. He's now 12-0 undefeated. I think I did rattle his cage a few times, and I think that would have taken my career to another step, but that loss like affected me a bit. And like straight after that, I came off a win, and I came off another 2 losses directly after that. So it was a bit of a downer for me. But if he doesn't leave to go somewhere else, I think I will meet him again. I'm looking to make a cut. I just don't want to say to where. And then the fight that I liked the most, I think needed to be Brendan Katz. Brendan Katz came out the first time we fought, ran his mouth. Geez, like, he didn't stop. We fought here in Durban. I think I submitted him in under 30 seconds. I then told him I would fight him in his own backyard up in Joburg, and ended up knocking him out in like 30 seconds. So, yeah, that was good.
Wesley, what about your career in EFC so far? You're now 30. Are there thoughts about perhaps fighting overseas?
I would like to go fight overseas, but the only issue I've got is, besides fighting, I mean, I run my own business, firstly. I've just had a newborn, getting married, and there's just so many things that are just like standing in the way, because now my focus is more on family, business, and training's now taking a step back.
You spoke about work and family commitments. We understand that you're going to be taking a bit of a prolonged break. You fight again in June, but there's a wedding around the corner.
Yeah, excited. Marrying the girl I love. Yeah, I don't know. They think I'm going to cry on the wedding, but I don't think so. Yeah, but she's my best friend, soulmate. It's just time to tie the knot, I think.
Difficult to juggle family, business, and a professional fighting career. Would it help youngsters coming into the game? And I say youngsters because perhaps easier for a youngster to build a career rather than someone who's already in their prime. Would it help a 20-year-old coming in if it was a career that you wouldn't have to focus on business or getting an income from somewhere else?
So if you're a youngster coming up, I mean, just keep pushing on, just keep performing. Don't worry about what people have to say. Don't worry about going out to look for the guys that want to support you. There's people that will always support you, and as you're coming up, they will follow you. So that's where you will get the benefits from.
I want to pick your brain about your colleagues or your fight mates in EFC. Most underrated, most overrated fighter?
You got guys like Trickers. You can't say he's overrated. I mean, that guy has got so much talent going for him. Underrated fighters. You know who one of my favorite fighters, unfortunately, is not fighting at the moment, and I think they do disadvantage him a bit when he fights, was Peter Nyidi. That man would come, he would bang those. He didn't care. He's a top-class fighter. So when I'd say underrated, that would be my choice, because EFC needed to give him a shot earlier and put him against the right opponents, and I think he would have been very close to championship material.
Speaking about Peter and the deal that you say that he's been given, do you feel as if though that the EFC is doing enough for young fighters and giving enough young fighters a chance to show what they can do?
I feel they are, but then sometimes you get a young fighter that's coming off like a 3-fight win streak, and now what they do is they say, okay, let's test him against a a prime fighter, and they go that one step ahead and they put him against a guy that they shouldn't be together as yet in their career. Because now what happens, once that loss comes, he's dieting himself for the next 3 or 4 fights, and he goes on that loss downhill. But they are doing a lot for youngsters coming up. They're giving them the opportunity to come into the game and that. But I think the way in they choose their guys needs to be much more stricter. I mean, EFC should be like the UFC. You got the best of the best that's fighting in there. And that's where it comes down to the promotions around the country to choose the best in the business.
Off camera, you and I spoke about moving up a weight division and coming down. Let's chat about where you are at the moment. What is the plan? Who would you like to fight next?
If I'm fighting, most probably in June, which is Sabaya, I am looking at doing the cut to bantamweight. It is a massive cut for me, where I usually fight at 66 and cut from 82, 84. I'm cutting now from 75 to 78 to try get down to 60. And I want a big fight. I mean, I want a contender in the bantamweight division, maybe a Sahed or a Groenewold. We were supposed to fight now EFC 54 in Cape Town, and I couldn't make the weight. I was still 10 kilos shy after cutting 10. Yeah, I would like to get Demart again, but I think he's long overdue to go overseas. So, Sahed.
Is there something lingering there with Demart? Do you genuinely feel that you could have won, you should have won, and it might have changed the way your career would have panned out over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I do feel that. I mean, to dominate for so long, but I mean, his whole game's now evolved, so I would like to see where I am to his game. And we such good matched fighters that our styles complement each other. So where I would want to stand and bang him, he doesn't mind. And there's so many, like, in his last few fights, he's come from being hurt, and he just goes and he goes and he goes, and that's what I like about him. He doesn't stop. So there is unfinished business there. It's just to get that motivation to try get to that division. Yeah.
Wesley, what about your nickname, the Assassin? Have you thought about it over the years? Is it time to change?
Nah, I'm still a young assassin. You see, I still look young, and when it comes to the fights, if the guys want to stand, we make quick work of that.
Finally, you mentioned the fact that you're now 30 now and have been in the game for a long, long time. What is the plan over the next couple of years? Have you given it thought? Will it be soon when you decide to quit? And if it is, what is the plan going forward?
Well, the plan now is family. I mean, my new child. I mean, the wedding. So when it comes to thinking about MMA, it's just now to just keep fit. Once that's out the way, then I can set myself some goals on that. With the last loss now, I should have been up there for title contention again, but didn't go my way. So it's something to think about. Something to think about. If EFC make it worth it, yeah, we can look at a few more years.
That's Wesley Hawkey, who has got a little different perspective over the next couple of months. He takes a break. He's a new dad and decides and will get married in April. But still, big ambitions of continuing to fight in the EFC, and who knows, maybe that rematch with Demart Pena might just happen in the next couple of years. I'm Myra Naiker for the Clinch for ENCA.com.
Africa's premier MMA promotion, the Extreme Fighting Championship, has been in existence now for over 7 years and has lasted the course while competitors have come and gone. In a truly remarkable week, the EFC released their entire 2017 10-event calendar, at the same time revealing with much fanfare a new multi-year broadcast deal with a South African state-run broadcaster, the SABC. Joining me to discuss the year ahead is the EFC President Cairo Howarth. Cairo, thanks for coming in. Is this a good deal for South African MMA fans?
Yeah, it's a fantastic deal for South African MMA fans. EFC's been growing year on year with our fan base from a viewership point of view, and this new partnership with the SABC will give more airtime to more fans across the country and more promotion to all of the athletes. So for sure, it's a fantastic deal.
What type of content can we look forward to? Apart from the live events, we're going to have archive fights, anything else?
We have archive stuff. We are working on some new content, kind of linking all together, kind of explaining it a bit more through to the fans, and later in the year, also looking at a completely new produced show specifically for new content being produced.
That's fantastic. I went to a press conference yesterday for the announcement, and I asked the SAB Sports Group executive, Sully Motsweni, if they have plans to grow the sport at grassroots level. And I really liked her answer. It was very positive and really quite expansionist. Do you get the impression that the SABC are into this sport now for the long haul?
Yeah, definitely. You know, after the press conference yesterday, I went back to SABC head office, Radio Park, and did a tour from radio station to radio station, and really getting the support. You know, it's not just the TV channels that they have; they do have multi platforms that they can promote us with, which is fantastic. And they're committing to pushing us across all of their different platforms, which will grow the sport 100%.
So why have you released in the same week the entire year's worth of events, whereas before you've only announced 2 fight nights in advance, but now you've announced every single event up to December in 2017. Why have you do that? Why the change?
It's just nice for people to be able to plan. You know, we are traveling a lot more. We have added new cities, new venues to go to, and a lot of our fans like to go to as many shows as they can. So now by telling someone that we're going to be in Sun City in July, they can plan around it. Or telling someone we're going to be in Durban in June, they can hopefully plan around it and get there. So we're trying to make it, give fans as much information as possible, and give them the chance to be at as many live events as they can.
Well, let's look at Port Elizabeth and Durban then whilst we're there. Have those venues been agreed upon and signed, like the Boardwalk and Sibaya respectively?
So that we haven't signed them. We've been in discussions with them for a long time. They're both building new actual venues to host events. So Sibaya, the construction has already started. They started last year, so that will be ready for June. We have confirmation it'll be ready for June, so we'll slot in there. Boardwalk construction hasn't started yet, so that's a matter of if once they started, it takes a couple of months, they said, to be ready. So the plan is for it to be ready by then. If not, we will then host that venue somewhere else until the construction's ready, and then push that event out till next year.
In terms of gate receipts then, are you confident that a place like Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape can really be sustainable?
Yeah, for one event a year. You know, we're not going to go there for 5 shows a year, but for one event a year, maybe even 2 down the line, I think it'll be perfectly fine. You know, you've got guys like Cameron Pritchard and Chris Bright, Sindile already coming out of there, and you know, it's still a really exciting show. Whether you have the local athletes or not, it's an exciting event to go to. We're going to have millions of fans watching EFC. We have millions of fans watching EFC on television. And when you suddenly go to a new city that's never had it before, all those fans that have been watching on TV, and they follow obviously their local heroes, but they're also following all the other champions and all the other EFC athletes on television every week, and now they can actually watch them in the flesh.
No, I completely agree with you. I think it's a fantastic thing for South Africa, it really is. And as a fan, it's one of those cases where live sports on television is great. When you go to the live event, watching live MMA,
whole nother level.
It is completely. So let's move from the local to further afield. Do you still have any Pan-African intentions or even intercontinental ideas for the promotion?
Yeah, definitely. We in numerous discussions pretty much all the time. So we'd love to, you know, we've been working on Angola for many years, we've been working on Nigeria, we're working on Congo, we're working on different territories. It's obviously lots of factors come into play to make that happen. We're hoping to get it right soon. And even we're in discussions, you know, all the time with different partners further afield. So certainly if the right deal comes onto the table, which is what we're looking for, if it makes the most sense for us, for our athletes, if the opportunities are correct, then we'll take them.
So obviously the SABC deal relieves a bit of a pressure on you. What other challenges do you foresee lying ahead in 2017 for the EFC?
Not that many actually, which is great. So I think from what this has done, we're essentially on television. Last year, EFC was on free-to-air television for a total of 20 hours. This year will be about 200 hours. So we're getting 10 times the amount of promotion, if you can call it that, which translates to the same for our athletes are getting that amount of promotion, which translates to their sponsors, EFC sponsors, more money coming to the sport as a whole. We're in a really good position, which is great.
That's a fantastic move, and congratulations on the deal. It's going to be great for South African MMA fans. I really can't wait for 2017 with the EFC. Cairo Howarth, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Simon.
Well, that's your lot for this week's episode of The Clinch. Don't forget, you can get hold of us through all the usual social media accounts. If there's anything whatsoever that you want to share or you want to see, please get hold of us. Next week, we're crossing to Birmingham to speak to who has to be the newest, most vilified heel in the EFC, middleweight champion Yannick Bahati. We're also going to be joined all the way from Tennessee by global commentator deluxe Cyrus Fees. So if you have any questions for them, be sure to hit us up on social media. Thanks for watching. Be good.